They called him the man who never blinked. In the underground world of the city, his name alone could silence rooms, freeze conversations, and end lives without a single command spoken aloud. To the public he was a billionaire logistics tycoon, sharp suits, clean headlines, generous donations. But beneath the polished surface lived a man who ruled fear like a kingdom. And that man was watching. From the shadowed balcony of the most exclusive charity gala of the year, El Jefe de la Mafia stood still, his presence heavy and cold as carved stone. Below him, crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light. Wealthy guests laughed, sipped champagne, and pretended morality was something you could rent for an evening. He did not drink. He did not smile. His eyes searched for only one thing: his mother. She had insisted on coming tonight, her fragile hands clasped together in excitement like a child seeing the world for the first time. Some days she remembered everything. Other days she was lost in memories that no longer existed. Tonight was one of the dangerous ones. He had warned everyone. Protect her. Watch her. Never let her wander alone. But power, he knew, was an illusion the moment you looked away. Across the ballroom, Lucia adjusted the tray, trembling in her hands. Her shoes were worn thin. Her uniform didn't fit properly. Her back ached from standing for 10 hours straight. She was invisible, exactly the way people like her were meant to be. A servant in a palace of predators. She needed this job. Rent was late. Her younger brother's medicine was running out. And tonight's tips could decide whether the lights stayed on another week. She lowered her gaze and moved carefully between the guests. Champagne, sir, madam? No one looked at her. Then the music faltered. Not enough to stop, but enough to change. A ripple of discomfort spread through the crowd like a bad omen. Lucia turned. Near the center of the ballroom stood an elderly woman in a simple velvet dress, clearly out of place among the diamonds and silk. Her hands shook as she clutched a small purse, eyes wide with fear. She looked lost. The crowd did not help her. They stepped away. Right in front of her stood a woman dressed in white, perfect, expensive, cruel. A socialite whose smile was sharp enough to draw blood. The old woman stumbled. Her hand brushed the woman's arm. Red wine spilled. Silence exploded. "What have you done?" the woman shrieked. The elderly woman flinched, confusion filling her eyes. "I'm sorry. I thought." "Mateo?" The socialite laughed, a sound with no warmth in it. "Do you know how much this dress costs?" she snapped. "You worthless old thing." Lucia felt something twist in her chest. She should have looked away. She didn't. The woman grabbed the old lady's arm. "You will clean this," she hissed. "On your knees." The old woman's legs shook. She began to sink toward the marble floor, whispering apologies through tears. That was when the balcony railing cracked. Above them all, the Mafia boss took one step forward. Then he stopped. He watched. Not because he didn't care, but because he wanted to know something terrifyingly important. Who in this room has the courage to do the right thing, without knowing who she is? Lucia didn't think. She moved. The tray crashed to the floor behind her as she ran the last few steps and slid between the women, catching the old lady before her knees touched the ground. "I've got you," Lucia whispered, wrapping her arms around the shaking woman. "You're safe." The socialite stared at her like she was dirt that had learned to speak. "Get out of my way," she snapped. "You're just a servant." Lucia's voice trembled, but she stood firm. "She's scared. She's confused. And you're humiliating her." The crowd gasped. "Oh, poor girl." Talking back. The manager rushed forward. "Miss, you're fired." The socialite raised a glass and threw its contents directly into Lucia's face. Cold. Sticky. Humiliating. Lucia closed her eyes, but did not step away. "If this makes you feel powerful," she said quietly, wiping her face, "then I feel sorry for you. You ruined your dress. You ruined your dignity long before tonight." A hand rose. To strike her. Enough. The word cut through the room like a blade. Footsteps echoed down the staircase. The crowd parted. He descended slowly, controlled, deadly, immaculate. The Mafia boss stopped in front of them. The socialite's face drained of color. Everyone knew him. Everyone feared him. He did not look at her first. He looked at Lucia. He saw the champagne soaking her uniform. The way she shielded his mother. The fear and the fire. He removed his jacket and gently placed it around Lucia's shoulders. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. Lucia shook her head, stunned. Then he turned. The temperature dropped. "You humiliated the woman who gave me life," he said calmly. "And you attacked the only person here with the courage to protect her." Security moved instantly. The socialite was dragged away, screaming. The crowd did not breathe. He offered his arm to his mother, and then, to Lucia. "Come with me," he said. And just like that, a poor servant stepped out of her old life, and into the lair of a man feared by the entire city. She didn't know it yet, but by standing between cruelty and kindness, she had become his greatest weakness. The cold outside bit into Lucia's skin as she stepped out of the hotel doors, but she barely noticed it. Her mind was still trapped in the ballroom, the way the crowd had stared at her like she was a mistake, the way the socialite's hand had lifted to strike her, and the way that single word, enough, had turned the whole room into a silent courtroom. Now she stood under the city lights, wrapped in the Mafia boss's expensive jacket, watching a black armored car glide to the curb like a predator that didn't need to run. The door opened. A large man in a suit stepped out first, scanning the area with trained eyes. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The bulge under his coat said everything. The Mafia boss placed a gentle hand on his mother's shoulder as if she were the only fragile thing in his world. The elderly woman looked around in confusion, still shaken, still holding Lucia's hand as if letting go would mean falling again. "Please," the old woman whispered. "Don't leave me. The dark scares me." Lucia's heart squeezed. She could walk away right now. She could run. She could go back to her small apartment, her late rent, her broken shoes, her brother waiting with hungry eyes. But she looked at the old woman, and she couldn't. "Get in," the boss said. It wasn't a request. Lucia's throat tightened. "Sir, my shift is over. I should go home." His gaze turned to her, dark, intense, calm. "You've already left home," he said quietly. "You just haven't realized it yet." The words chilled her more than the wind. Still, the old woman's hand clung to hers. Her fingers were thin, trembling, desperate. Lucia swallowed. Then she stepped into the car. The door shut with a final heavy sound, sealing her inside a world that smelled like leather, wealth, and something darker. Something that didn't belong to normal life. The car moved. The city blurred past the window. Silence grew thick. The old woman rested her head on Lucia's shoulder like a child, humming a soft song. It sounded like a lullaby from another lifetime. The Mafia boss sat across from them watching. Not staring. Studying. As if Lucia was a puzzle he hadn't planned to solve, but now couldn't ignore. After several minutes he spoke. "Why did you do it?" Lucia blinked. "Do what?" "Intervene," he said. "You knew you could lose your job. You knew you could be arrested. You knew you could be hurt." Lucia looked down at the old woman's hand in hers. "She reminded me of someone," she admitted, voice low. "My grandmother, she had memory problems too. People treated her like she was nothing. Like she wasn't human anymore." Lucia's jaw tightened. "I couldn't watch it happen again." The boss didn't react the way she expected. He didn't laugh. He didn't insult her. Instead, he leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing in something close to curiosity. "In my world," he said slowly, "people don't do things for free." Lucia looked up. "Maybe that's why your world is broken." The words fell out before she could stop them. The car went silent. The large guard in the front seat stiffened. Lucia's heart slammed against her ribs. She had just spoken to the most feared man in the city like he was a regular person. The boss stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he exhaled. A low sound, not laughter but something like it. "You're either very brave," he murmured, "or very foolish." Lucia forced herself to hold his gaze, even though fear crawled under her skin. "Maybe both," she said. That was the first time his eyes softened, only slightly, but enough to be noticeable. The boss reached forward and pressed a button beside him. A glass divider rose, sealing off the front of the car. The guard could no longer hear them. Lucia felt her pulse spike. He was cutting her off from help. From witnesses. From safety. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice tight. He folded his hands. "Talking." Lucia swallowed hard. "I know who you are," she said carefully. "And I know what people say about you." He didn't deny it. He only tilted his head as if waiting for her to speak the truth out loud. Lucia continued, "So if this is where you tell me you're going to punish me, or threaten me, just do it quickly." The boss's eyes flicked to his mother, who slept peacefully against Lucia's shoulder. Then he looked back at Lucia. "I'm not taking you to hurt you," he said quietly. Lucia's body stayed tense. "Then why am I here?" He paused. And then he said the last thing she expected. "Because I need you." Lucia blinked in disbelief. He leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but heavy with authority. "My mother is my weakness," he said. "And my enemies know it. She has nurses, staff, security. But they're afraid of her. Lucia frowned. Why would they be afraid of her? His mouth tightened. They're afraid of me. Lucia's stomach turned. He continued, tonight you protected her like she mattered. You didn't see a rich woman. You didn't see a helpless inconvenience. You saw a human being. Lucia looked at the old woman again, sleeping peacefully. She is a human being, Lucia whispered. Yes, he said. And I need someone in my house who remembers that. Lucia's throat went dry. You want me to work for you? I want to hire you exclusively, he said. You will live at my estate. You will be her companion. You will make sure she never feels afraid or alone again. Lucia shook her head immediately. No. His eyes sharpened. No. I can't, Lucia said firmly. I have my brother. He's 16. He needs me. He's sick. The boss didn't blink. Bring him, he said simply. Lucia froze. Excuse me? He spoke like it was nothing. Like he was telling her to bring an extra bag. Bring your brother, he repeated. He will live at the estate. He will have security, private doctors, the best medicine. He will attend school with tutors. Lucia stared stunned. That's not normal, she whispered. His voice was calm, almost bored. Normal is for people who can afford it. Lucia's hands clenched. Her whole life she had begged for tiny things. Discounts on food, extra time on rent, mercy from managers who treated her like she was disposable. Now a man was offering her everything without blinking. It didn't feel like kindness. It felt like a trap made of gold. How much? Lucia asked, forcing the words out. He answered instantly. 10,000 a month. Housing. Food. Medical care. Tuition if you want to study. Lucia's breath caught. 10,000. She could pay rent. She could fix everything. She could buy her brother the medicine he needed without begging pharmacies to wait until payday. It was a dream. But dreams sometimes came with teeth. What's the catch? She whispered. His eyes locked onto hers. The catch, he said softly, is that once you enter my house, you follow my rules. Lucia's blood ran cold. He leaned closer, voice even lower. You do not speak to outsiders about what you see. You do not leave without permission. And if anyone tries to touch my mother, you protect her. Lucia swallowed. Like a guard dog. His lips curved slightly. A guard dog that looks like a lamb, he said. People underestimate you. That's useful. Lucia hated how true that was. The car slowed. Through the tinted window, Lucia saw high stone walls rising ahead, topped with electric fencing. Massive iron gates opened as if the earth itself obeyed him. They drove in. And Lucia realized this wasn't an estate. It was a fortress. The mansion loomed like something from a Gothic nightmare, gray stone, tall windows, sharp edges. Lights glowed inside, but they didn't feel warm. The car stopped at the entrance. The guard opened the door. Lucia stepped out slowly, her legs weak. The air smelled like wet grass and power. Men in suits patrolled the grounds with trained movements. Dogs prowled beside them. Lucia whispered, "How many enemies do you have?" The boss didn't look at her as he guided his mother toward the doors. Enough, he said. Inside, the mansion was colder than the winter outside. Marble floors. Tall ceilings. Expensive paintings. No photographs. No warmth. It didn't feel lived in. It felt controlled. He led Lucia into a library where a fireplace crackled. One of the only places that felt human. Sit, he ordered. Lucia sat, still holding herself tight. He poured a dark amber drink into 2 glasses and handed her one. This will help, he said. Lucia didn't drink. He turned, opened a drawer and tossed a thick folder into her lap. Open it. Lucia hesitated, then opened it. And her world shattered. Photos of her leaving work. Her apartment building. Her brother walking to school. Her unpaid bills. Her father's death certificate. Lucia's fingers trembled. How? She whispered. We met tonight. He sat across from her, unbothered. I know everything about the people I bring into my world, he said. It keeps me alive. Lucia's chest tightened in disgust. You investigated me. He didn't deny it. I verified your story, he said. And I protected my investment. Lucia's eyes flashed. I'm not an investment. He leaned forward. And suddenly the air felt heavy. In this house, he said softly, you are what I say you are. Lucia's mouth opened, anger rising. Then she stopped. Because fear rose too. Not fear of death. Fear of being powerless. Again. He placed a contract on the table. The paper looked clean. Professional. But Lucia felt like she was staring at chains. You sign, he said. Your brother gets medical care. Your debt disappears. Your life becomes safe. And if I don't? Lucia whispered. His gaze didn't soften. Then you go back to your world, he said. Where landlords threaten you. Managers humiliate you. And people like that woman at the gala are free to crush whoever they want. Lucia felt tears sting her eyes. She hated him for being right. She hated the world for making his offer tempting. She stared at the contract. Then she swallowed hard and said, I have one condition. His eyebrow lifted, amused. You're not in a position to negotiate, he said. But entertain me. Lucia's voice shook, but she held firm. I want to finish my nursing studies, she said. Online. At night. You pay the tuition. His eyes studied her for a long moment. Then something surprising happened. He smiled. Not the cold smile of a predator. A real one, brief, rare, and dangerous. Done, he said. Lucia's heart pounded. She picked up the pen. Her hand hovered. And in that moment she knew the truth. Once she signed, she would never be the same. Lucia signed. The boss took the paper, locked it away, and stood. Good, he said. Welcome to my house. Lucia rose slowly, feeling like she had stepped onto a path she couldn't return from. He pointed toward the hallway. 3rd floor. Second door on the left, he said. You sleep there. Lucia hesitated. And my brother? My men are bringing him tomorrow, he said. Lucia's stomach twisted. You sent men to my home, she snapped. He turned, calm and merciless. I told you, he said. I'm meticulous. Lucia's hands clenched. She wanted to scream. But then she remembered her brother's empty inhaler. Her overdue rent. Her fear. She forced herself to breathe. As she walked toward the stairs, the mansion swallowed her footsteps. Behind her, the boss spoke again quietly. Lucia. She turned. His eyes were darker now. Not cruel. Not kind. Something else. You didn't just save my mother, he said. You showed me something I forgot existed. Lucia frowned. What? He held her gaze. Honor, he said. Then he turned away as if the moment had never happened. Lucia climbed the stairs, her body shaking. She entered her room and closed the door. The silence was heavy. She leaned against the wood, breathing hard. And that's when she saw it. A tiny red light blinked above the corner of the ceiling. The camera. Watching. Lucia's breath caught. She wasn't just a guest. She wasn't just an employee. She was a piece on a board. And the game had already started. Lucia slept poorly that first night. Not because the bed wasn't comfortable, it was softer than anything she had ever known, but because comfort did not erase fear. The silence of the mansion was too complete, too deliberate. It felt watched. Measured. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined that tiny red light blinking in the corner of the ceiling. Watching her breathe. Watching her exist. She rose before dawn, dressing quietly, reminding herself that she was here for one reason only. Her brother. That thought anchored her. Downstairs, the estate was already awake. Guards moved with quiet precision. Staff spoke in whispers. Everything ran like a machine, efficient, emotionless, exact. Lucia found the Mafia boss's mother in a sunlit room filled with plants. The old woman sat by a window, smiling faintly as she watered orchids with careful hands. There you are, she said warmly, as if Lucia had always belonged there. I was afraid the house had eaten you. Lucia smiled despite herself. Not yet. They spent the morning together, listening to old music and folding towels that didn't need folding. Sometimes the woman remembered everything. Sometimes she didn't remember Lucia at all. But she was calm. Say, that mattered. It wasn't until midday that the first crack appeared. A convoy arrived at the gates. Lucia felt it before she saw it, her chest tightening, her breath hitching. Her brother was here. She ran outside without thinking. A car door opened. And there he was. Thin. Pale. Too quiet. Toby, she breathed. He looked up, eyes wide, confusion and fear flashing across his face. Lucia, he asked. Where are we? She pulled him into her arms, holding him tighter than she ever had before. His body felt fragile, lighter than it should have. You're safe, she whispered. I promise. Behind them, the Mafia boss watched silently. Doctors were already moving in, real doctors, not overworked clinic staff. They guided Toby gently inside. Lucia followed, her heart pounding. Tests were done quickly. Efficiently. Too quickly. The head doctor finally turned to Lucia, his expression serious. "We need to speak," he said. The words hit her like ice. They sat in a private room. The Mafia boss stood against the wall, arms crossed, unreadable. "It's not just asthma," the doctor said carefully. "Your brother has a rare autoimmune condition. Untreated, it explains the breathing problems, the fatigue, the weight loss." Lucia's ears rang. "Can you fix it?" she whispered. "Yes," the doctor said. "But it requires immediate treatment. And it's expensive." Lucia laughed once, sharp, broken. "Of course it is." The Mafia boss spoke then. "Do whatever is necessary." The doctor nodded immediately. "Of course." Lucia turned toward him, eyes burning. "You knew," she accused softly. He met her gaze. "I suspected. You didn't tell me." "I wanted confirmation," he replied calmly. "Now you have it." Lucia stood abruptly. "That's my brother," she said. "You don't get to experiment with his life." His jaw tightened, not in anger but something else. "I saved his life," he said quietly. Lucia's breath shook. "Yes," she said. "You did." And that made everything worse. That night, she cried alone in her room. Not because of fear, but because for the first time in years, someone else was carrying the weight she had been drowning under. And she didn't know how to live with that. Days passed. Toby began treatment. Color slowly returned to his face. He slept without wheezing for the first time in months. Lucia watched him carefully, half expecting the miracle to vanish. It didn't. Meanwhile, the Mafia boss remained distant. Always watching. Always controlling. Yet never crossing a line. Except one. One evening, Lucia found him sitting with his mother in the garden, listening as she told a story from her youth, one she had told 100 times already. He listened like it was new. Like it mattered. Lucia realized something then. He wasn't cruel. He was closed. And closed things cracked under pressure. The pressure came 3 nights later. Lucia was returning from the medical wing when it happened. The lights flickered. Then went out. Alarms screamed. She froze. Shadows moved. Too fast. Hands grabbed her. A cloth pressed against her mouth. She fought, harder than anyone expected. Kick, scratch, bit. But there were too many. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the mansion gates opening from the inside, letting the wolves in. When Lucia woke, she was tied to a chair in a warehouse that smelled like rust and oil. Her head throbbed. A man stepped into the light. He smiled. "Hello, little lamb," he said. "You're very valuable." Lucia's heart raced, but her voice stayed steady. "You won't get what you want," she said. The man laughed. "We already have." At the mansion, chaos erupted. The moment the Mafia boss saw the empty hallway camera feed, something inside him snapped. They hadn't taken his money. They hadn't taken his territory. They had taken her. His orders were immediate. Block the city. Lock down exits. Burn every safe house connected to his enemies. By the time he arrived at the warehouse, it was already too late for mercy. He walked through blood and silence. Found Lucia. Alive. Shaking. Untouched, but barely. He knelt in front of her and cut the ropes himself. Lucia looked up at him, eyes wide. "You came," she whispered. His hands trembled as he pulled her into his arms. "I told you," he said hoarsely. "You belong to my house." For the first time, Lucia didn't push away. She clung to him. And for the first time he realized the truth. She wasn't his weakness anymore. She was his reason. Lucia stayed silent for 3 days after the kidnapping. Not the frightened silence of a victim, but the deep, thinking quiet of someone whose world had shifted forever. The mansion moved differently now. Guards doubled. Cameras multiplied. Every shadow was hunted. Every name whispered in the wrong tone disappeared from the city like smoke. The Mafia boss did not sleep. He sat in the library at night, watching security feeds, replaying the moment she had been taken again and again. He had ruled through fear for years, believing control was enough. Lucia proved him wrong. Fear had failed. She healed faster than anyone expected. Not because she wasn't shaken, but because survival had been her entire life. Pain did not surprise her. Power did. She spent her days with his mother, who sensed the shift immediately. "You're not afraid anymore," the old woman said one afternoon, patting Lucia's hand. "You've grown taller inside." Lucia smiled softly. "I don't think I'm allowed to be afraid here." The old woman shook her head. "No, child. You're protected." That word echoed. Protected. Not owned. Not controlled. Protected. That distinction mattered. The Mafia boss began to change, but not in loud, dramatic ways. He stopped issuing threats where he once would have burned cities. He listened when Lucia spoke, even when she challenged him. He removed the camera from her room without telling her, and without asking for credit. She noticed anyway. One night she confronted him in the library. "Why did you do it?" she asked quietly. He looked up from his papers. "Do what?" "Remove the camera." He closed the folder. "Because I don't need to watch you to trust you," he said. "And because you shouldn't live like prey." Lucia held his gaze. "And the others?" she asked. "The men who took me?" His expression hardened. "They begged," he said. "It didn't help them." Lucia flinched. Then she said something that no one had ever dared to say to him. "Don't do it for me." He stiffened. "Do it," she continued, voice steady, "because it's wrong. Not because they touched what you think is yours." Silence filled the room. For a moment, Lucia thought she had gone too far. Then he exhaled slowly. "You don't belong to me," he said. "And that's the problem." Lucia frowned. "You don't bend," he continued. "You don't beg. You don't fear me." He stood, towering over her. "And yet," he said quietly, "you are the only person who ever changed me." Lucia's breath caught. The final reckoning came a week later. His enemies had underestimated one thing. Lucia. They believed she was bait. They were wrong. Lucia discovered the final threat herself. Through patterns, through listening, through the same quiet observation that had kept her alive for years. She brought the information to him. "You don't need to do this alone," she said. He looked at her, really looked at her. "No," he agreed. "I don't." Together they ended it. Not with chaos. With precision. The criminal network collapsed. Arrests followed. Evidence surfaced. Judges who had once bowed suddenly remembered justice. For the first time in years the city slept easier. And no one ever connected the fall of an empire to a poor girl with worn shoes. Months passed. Lucia finished her first year of nursing studies. Her brother laughed again, loudly, freely, alive. The old woman remembered Lucia's name every day now. One evening, the Mafia boss stood beside Lucia on the balcony, the same place where he had once watched the world without feeling it. "I built my life on power," he said. "And it nearly destroyed me." Lucia said nothing. "You walked into my world with nothing," he continued. "And you took everything from me that was rotten." He turned to her. "I don't know how to love softly," he said. "But if you stay, I will learn." Lucia looked at him. Not as a king. Not as a monster. Not as a savior. As a man. "I won't stay because I'm afraid," she said. "I won't stay because I owe you." He nodded. "I know." "I'll stay," she finished, "because you chose to become better." For the first time he smiled without shadows. Lucia never became a queen in name. She became something stronger. A conscience. A shield. A reminder. And the man who once ruled through fear learned the hardest lesson of all. That true power kneels before kindness.